welcome to A Lady Well Traveled. I'm your host and creator, Shannon Bednarova, and I'm thrilled you've joined me today. On this podcast, we talk about all things travel, food, culture, and history. We attempt to approach each topic with humor, logic, and some southern sass. Pretty much anything is fair game. Today, we're going to talk about cultural differences between European and the British Isles and the Americas, minding the gap. Even though it's episode 6, it's really a continuation of episode 5. So I am again delighted to have Jenn Voss as my guest. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. That was such a nice way to say Jen talked too much the first time.
No. As you know, Jen is a Francophile, Epicurean, and just a wonderful, wonderful guest. I'm so delighted to again have her on the show. Jen and I are going to be talking today about train travel.
Yes.
And train travel is really a delightful way for anyone to see the European or British countryside. Taking a train or the metro or the tube is a great way to get around and see some of Europe's larger cities. In the United States, we were kind of laughing about that. Some of our larger cities have subways or train systems, but as a whole, the United States train system, which is called Amtrak, is pretty dismal when it comes to train service.
We're really behind. We're not going to win any awards there.
No, we're not. No. And in Europe and the British Isles, the trains pretty much go everywhere, and they're convenient, they're fast, they're safe, and they're clean. And it's a wonderful way to travel, don't you think?
I do.
The subway systems, for the most part, are usually very clean and safe. Some cities, recently have become a little bit more notorious for pickpockets and thieves, but European subways, metros, whatever you want to call them, tubes, are pretty safe and reliable. In the United States, however, train travel can vary from being extremely expensive and luxurious to downright filthy and dangerous, where you can actually take your life in your hands by entering a subway station. Jen, what do you think some of the major differences are when riding on the trains between the United States and Europe and the British Isles?
Speaking about, the larger trains, the real country to country or area to area trains, I think you hit on the biggest thing is that it's really just such a glorious experience.
Oh, yeah.
It's really lovely. You get to see such beautiful scenery. The seats are comfortable. The trains, by and large, are comfortable. Of course, it's going to vary from country to country, but you're going to find comfort on a European train that you're not going to find, especially not on a mid-priced train ticket in the United States. It's not, it's really a good experience. A lot of times what Americans might find interesting is that a lot of countries have quiet cars. I know, you're on your way to England. I know England has quiet cars, maybe primarily quiet cars, but France, Italy, they have quiet cars, and you really need to be aware of that. And I think Americans are often used to being on their cell phones at all times, watching something, or even speaking to the people that they're traveling with, which seems like a normal thing. But in a quiet car, you really want to keep that to a whisper.
Exactly. And I think that's a great point. One of the things that we talked about recently, based on a trip that we just took, is being prepared for situations to change. When you think you've purchased a reserved seat on the train, however, when we boarded the train, we found that the seats were first come, first serve. And why was that?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that can happen. They had to, for whatever reason that we're not privy to, just, they needed to bring a physically different train. And it had fewer cars, and there were already people on this shorter train. Even the seat numbers that we had reserved, they didn't even exist. That is part of the spirit of travel. Be ready for things to change and make the best of it. You're still in Europe, and you're still traveling, and you're still seeing beautiful things. But what was really interesting about that is that, the staff on the train knew that this was an inconvenience for travelers, tourists, and they were so accommodating. I think you have some really great examples of that. Everyone we came in contact with was so positive.
Absolutely, I do. There are 4 of us on this trip. right now, and we were all hoping to sit together, but we were unable to continue that. So three of you guys went towards a back car, and I found a seat with the gentleman that I'm going to speak about in a little while. But the wonderful conductors and the attendants were so nice, and they were attending our bags and being very mindful of our larger bags that would not fit in the overhead compartments. And they were just so nice and just being watchful and mindful at any stop where doors would open, people would exit and enter the trains. They were making sure our bags were safe and always taken care of. So it was really nice.
I think just in general, I thought it was really sweet that they let us know, listen, we know this isn't what you expected. So
Yeah,
we could leave our bags in spaces where ordinarily you wouldn't even be able to leave bags, but they
exactly.
were trying to do what was best. And I'll say another thing, we didn't discuss this earlier, but it
Right?
just hit me that I also loved when, if you are getting on a section of the train, that's first
Mm-hmm.
come, first serve.
Yeah.
It can be very awkward when there are no seats, but someone has their bag on the seat, right?
Right.
You want to ask them to move it, but you don't, and it can be difficult. I loved that when they realized that the seats
Yeah.
were becoming more scarce, they made the announcement that you had to move your bag, and in fact, they said,
Right.
if you don't, we're going to charge you for that seat.
That's
And
right.
so it made people coming on feel much more comfortable to either ask themselves or
Yeah.
people generally moved their bags, and then
Right.
they had spaces to sit. I felt like they dealt with it really well.
They sure did. I remember that because they were like, if you have a coat or a personal bag sitting on the seat beside you, we're going to fine you
Yeah.
because someone needs that seat. I thought that was really great. I
Yes.
agree with you. Some people like to risk riding the subway or the train without a ticket.
And they
However,
shouldn't. Yeah.
yeah, but some people, there are people who do that all the time. We wanted to bring up was when you do that, you really do that at your own risk
Sure.
because if you ride the train, you may never see a conductor. The last time we did that, we never had anybody come by and say, let me see your ticket. But what happens if a conductor comes to you and asks for you to produce your ticket and you don't have one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is often more common in places that don't have the automated gates
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
But even if there are, you might risk being in a different class or something like that.
Mhm.
And what happens if the conductor comes by? And by the way, even if you're taking a short trip, the conductors know, listen, let me go to this place first because,
Yeah,
what happens is you're going to get a hefty fine for sure, but you could, depending on where you are, be banned from public transport.
right.
And that's a pretty serious thing.
Absolutely. And, I guess they can fine you as well, can't
Oh,
they?
yes, absolutely. A hefty fine.
Oh, if you want to risk riding the train or the metro or the tube or what have you without a ticket, do that at your own risk. What would you say if you're riding the train and you've got a boatload of luggage? You've got this great big giant bag, and then you've got another bag, and you've got a backpack. Is there an easier way to enter and exit through the automated gates? What do you recommend we do, Jen?
Well, Shannon, I have no idea why you asked me this
I don't
particular
either.
question. As it happens, I've done it incorrectly. So
Oh
let me
my.
share wisdom with you. If you have luggage, and I would say luggage of any kind, even if it is what you think is small mobile luggage that you
Okay.
can easily maneuver, go through the wide gate. Even if there's a little bit of a line or queue
Okay.
there, go through it because I've been not able to get through because of my luggage, and it just creates a much larger problem. Now,
Okay.
I could make this a very long story, but I won't. But this happened to me in the Paris metro. I wasn't able to get through the line. And first, it was very difficult to find somebody to help me. I thought I would solve the problem myself by buying an extra fare on my card, which
Mhm.
of course, made everything worse because it appeared that I was trying to pull something because the machine thought I was already on the other side of the gates and wouldn't let me through again.
Ah.
When I finally found someone And I hesitate to share this story because I love my French people.
Oh, I know.
And they have a little bit of a reputation for being
Sure.
maybe slightly rude. I don't know.
Oh.
Have you heard this? Have you heard
No,
this?
no,
Okay, yeah.
no.
I want to defend them. I will say in this case, this wasn't a natively French person, and she did thankfully for me speak English. The main phrase that she wanted to share with me when I was trying to explain my problem was, "No, I tell you." Trying to explain how I wanted to get through, and she would again stop me. "No, I tell you." It was a really aggressive situation.
Yeah.
I did get through. And as I shared with you, I think my pass will now work in Paris. So I guess the next time I'm there, I'll let
There
you
you
know.
go. That's awesome. Well, I think that's really important to, again, keep a sense of humor anytime you're trying to ride the train or the subway. My tips for riding on the subway: always keep your purse across your body, your backpack on your side or your front, and don't keep it on your back because that makes it so easily accessible to pickpockets or thieves. Don't flash your cash or your jewelry, and keep your phones out of your hands because that has become the new trend lately for thieves to take your phones directly out of your hands. If you have a cord or a wristband for your phone, make sure you have that attached to your wrist using a wrist strap. Try storing your money and your passports in some kind of money band that fits under your clothing or some type of specialty clothing items. What do you think, Jen?
I think that's a great idea. A lot of times that might be a little bit easier for men than women because they dress differently. And
Absolutely.
it depends on the weather. But if that's something that will work for where you're going, I think that's probably the most secure thing. And I would still keep the same rules where everything would be stored on your front, where you're very
Right.
aware of it and it's in
Right.
your field of vision.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to your great point about having your phone out. A lot of times you might think in your hand is this safe place to have your phone. And as you mentioned, it's a new thing to grab it because you're not expecting someone to grab it out of your hand. So you're not prepared for it, right? But the other side of that is that it's basically a big blaring symbol to everyone that you're distracted and possibly that you don't know where you're going, right? Because generally you're looking at maps or you're Googling something or you're figuring out what happens at the next stop. And so those two things are not things we want to alert people to.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And I think we really need to be focused on what we're doing, know where we're going, and look more confident because thieves are looking for people who are distracted. I don't know what I'm doing.
If they look
here.
uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And I think we have to look out for one another too. And you have a great story about this.
And, on the metro in Paris, I have actually seen gypsy children swarm Asian tourist ladies and try to pick their pockets. And I realized what was going on. I yelled at them, ran and intimidated them, and they ran away. So try to be highly aware of your surroundings at all times. Be aware of strangers who come up to you to help you, and I'm saying help in quotations.
Or to ask for help.
Ask for help, exactly. Because this is a very common ploy for thieves and pickpockets. One will distract you with a request for help while their accomplice robs you. And in Barcelona, a very common tactic that I have heard of and seen actually is someone comes up and spills a drink like red wine, which is, of course, yuck. Who wants red wine spilled on them? And they act horrified and they say, "Oh, let me help you clean up." So they rush you to the restroom, and then you get to the restroom and then their accomplices rob. That's a horrible, horrible thing to have happen. So please be aware of these types of tactics. Of course, I'd rather have a red wine stain on my clothes than to get robbed by a bunch of people.
I'm gonna have to agree with you there.
Absolutely. One of the things Jen brought up was for women. Don't worry about appearing rude.
It's so true. And this is actually a good advice at home as well, particularly when you're not in your normal environment, right? Women are usually more, and this can apply to men, but women are generally more aware of whether or not they're going to appear rude or not nice, or they're going to make a scene. And that's something you really can't afford to be worrying about when you're in a different environment, you're traveling, particularly if you're alone, right? And so women are worried about being nice, and we genuinely people, and we'd be worried.
Of course.
But the fact is, if you're not in your normal environment, if you're not an expert of what's going on here, someone coming up to you for help, it's either a scam and you need to distance yourself. If they truly need help, you're not the best person to help them. They should find someone else who better knows what's going on. More often than not, this is just going to be a scam, and you need to keep your wits about you and just kind of separate yourself and not be afraid of looking rude or mean, and just keep yourself safe.
That is so, so true. And one of the points that we had made together is understand how to call the authorities.
Yes.
Whenever you're in Europe or in the British Isles.
That came up for us,
Oh.
thankfully not with a crime situation,
Right.
but I thought the carbon monoxide detector was going off. Turns out it had a low battery, but it made me realize, gosh, I did not this time figure out how to call the emergency response here in Scotland, which it turns out it's 999. Wherever you are, it's always going to be something easy to remember, but you
Absolutely.
need to know what it is.
That's
As
right.
Americans, we would be inclined to think it's 911 everywhere, but it's
Sure.
not, right?
It's right.
So you need to figure out what that is, and you need to put that to memory. And then our friend Paula made the great point that we should also know the embassy number. That's something you should program in your phone.
Absolutely.
And probably write down somewhere. These are really good things to
Right.
just prepare yourself.
Sometimes your lovely Airbnb host will provide the emergency numbers for their guests that will connect you to the police, ambulance, hospital, fire stations, and other first responders types of services. But it's really your responsibility to research that wherever you're going to
1000%.
be,
Yeah.
and to be aware of those things. Jenn, as we wrap this up, can you tell me a little bit about your experiences with buses in Italy and France and how that works?
I sure can. So one of the big things, and does apply to local transport too, do a little research just on how you can pay for things, right? Because it's really different everywhere you
Of
go. There's a
course.
ton of different options and what might be best for how long you're going to be there and that kind of thing. And that applies to the bus as well. People in Europe travel often by bus.
Yeah.
So larger coach buses that you would have to have a reservation for is a different thing. That's usually with a tour or something like that. But local buses can be really, really handy, and they can be a
Sure.
great way to travel, particularly from train stations or airports. Those kinds of buses can accommodate luggage as well. But it's different than you might think. We tend to think you can do everything with your credit card.
Right.
The fact is, in a lot of places, even touristy areas, you can't. So a recent example, at least in France, was traveling in the Champagne. I say that because even French people can't pronounce the name of the city, so I won't do it on the air. But I'm traveling in the Champagne. The buses there take exact change only. So they only take cash, but they take exact change only. You have to know your fare and give exact change to get on the bus.
Wow.
There are bus stops everywhere, including at Vive Clicquot. So,
Okay.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
not a shoddy bus, okay?
No.
But you have to have your exact change. So that's an important thing. Buses in Italy, I prefer this method. Any sort of card shop, or what I would call a deli as a New Yorker,
Yeah.
any little cafe you pop into, you can buy a bus ticket.
Okay.
It's very easy, and you can pay any which way there, but then you need that ticket to get on the bus.
I gotcha.
And so it's different everywhere you go. None of this is hard, and I don't want anybody to be intimidated by it.
No.
But it just takes a little research so that you know ahead of time
What to do and where to go.
I also know from my in-laws in Germany, there are machines at each bus stop.
Okay.
You just leave yourself a little bit of extra time to figure that out.
Right. I think that's such an important point, because if you don't know where to go or what to do, you're going to be wandering around going, gosh, I don't know how to get on this bus. What do I do?
And it's such an
There we go.
affordable way to travel that
Yeah.
it's worth figuring out. It's fine if we're going to have another show about other ways to travel.
Absolutely.
But if you don't want to plan for that, bus is a great way to do it. You just have to have a little bit of forethought.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. There are so many wonderful things that can happen on a train ride, don't you think?
I agree. I actually was just going to say, expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really applies to something that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And I hope you'll share. about that.
I would love to share that. You never know who you're going to sit next to on the train. And yesterday I was so lucky to sit next to a poet whose name was David Alexander Robb, and he was 85 years old and he lives in Edinburgh, Scotland. He's a fellow traveler through life. I met him on the train to Inverness. We just basically talked about life and laughed and cried. He wrote me a poem, and I'd love to share that with you. Here goes. Sometimes we meet, however unexpectedly, a fellow traveler in life, now sharing the strife, now sharing the memories, over the noise of the train, never thinking the two of us, making light of the pain. You say you like all that I say, mistakes and all in every way. To be and all and start again, to work about the state of men. However, now I feel I know each path to take, each way to go. Now, Rob is my last name, and my last name I've just said. In fact, David's the first. Keep typing, it's okay. Each finger a burst. Down in the glen, that was just a passing through. History in the making, everything is now new. A start again, now we know that we weren't alone, and God is the answer, and He's on His throne. Mankind in His image, each one on her own. Some day he'll learn of a new breed of man. I doubt he'll understand. In fact, he'll agree. Downfall is due to a lack. Downfall to the being, really a lack. And then in a moment of light, delivered a woman the answer all right. Thank you, David, for that beautiful poem. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's so gorgeous. Gosh.
Yes, and thank you, Jen, of course, as always, for being with me. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for being with us again on A Lady Well Traveled. We certainly appreciate you joining us. Please remember to tell your friends and family to join us on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. And always, always remember that we're here for you and that you can join us at any time. You can contact us at aladywelltraveled.com. That's aladywelltraveled.com. And please, please remember that God created this beautiful, beautiful world just for you. You should get out there and see it right now because it's there for you, just for you. So till next time, God bless you. Till we meet again. Bye bye.